Good afternoon. I'm Dawn James, and we're broadcasting in from COP26 at Glasgow. I have here with me today Lord Barker of Battle, the Executive Chairman of N+. Lord Barker, what's N+ and why are you here?
Well, of course, N+ is the world's largest producer of low-carbon aluminium and the biggest generator of hydropower in the private sector. Low-carbon aluminium, of course, is essential if we're going to move the world to a low-carbon economy. It's an essential material for electric vehicles, for renewable energy infrastructure, for sustainable housing and buildings, and of course recyclable packaging. So it's really at the very heart of the circular, sustainable, low-carbon and ultimately net zero economy that we're all here in Glasgow trying to deliver. And in addition, because N+, I think, is so important to this whole endeavour, I have a further role, which is as chair of the World Bank's climate initiative, the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition, which is a collection of 150 countries and major companies, all of whom are united in the belief that putting a price on carbon is probably the most effective policy tool we can deploy in driving the world to that safer, more sustainable, low-carbon future.
Okay, yes, of course, you co-chaired the star-studded panel this morning on carbon pricing. But carbon pricing, you make aluminium. How does that affect your industry?
Well, as I just said, aluminium is going to be vital for all of these important low-carbon applications, renewable energy, electric vehicles, etc. However, while aluminium is super lightweight, and while aluminium is almost infinitely recyclable, something like 70% of the world's aluminium that's been made in the modern era is still in circulation. While all of that is true and makes for a great sustainability story, the fact is not all aluminium is created equal. The majority of the world's aluminium is actually produced in China, about 60% or more. And there, they're using coal-fired electricity to smelt the metal. And it's a very energy-intensive process to create this metal. That means that so much coal-fired electricity is created that it takes about 18 tons of carbon to produce just 1 ton of aluminium. However, if you substitute coal-fired electricity for clean electricity, clean energy, as we do, using hydropower to make that electricity, that number drops from around 18 to less than 2.5 tons. So 18 tons of carbon versus 2.5 tons of carbon. And that's why the N+ group is the world's leader in the production of low-carbon aluminium. But we don't want to stop there. We have a very clear net zero goal for 2050 and a pathway that's going to take us there. And along that route, we're going to have to produce zero-carbon aluminium. It's going to require a lot of investment and innovation, but it's not enough for us to arrive at that goal on our own. We need to take our sector with us, and we need to be part of a broader low-carbon and ultimately zero-carbon world.
And haven't you got some smart new technology that deals with that 2.5 tons issue that you just talked about?
Yes, that's right. It's called inert anode. So although we're already a low-carbon producer because of the clean electricity we're using, the actual smelting technology itself needs to change. And our new technology will allow us to smelt, and instead of giving off CO2 in that process, to actually produce oxygen as a byproduct, which would be a great result and potentially become even carbon negative in its production.
Amazing, amazing. And so what do you think of the COP so far?
Well, there's a terrific atmosphere. I mean, it's only recently that I think people accepted that there was going to be an in-person COP. I think a lot of people were very worried that very few people would be able to physically reach Glasgow. But you only have to arrive here to realise that this is a very vibrant, very full COP meeting. And I've been to a lot of UN COPs over the last decade or so, and certainly just the feel and the pace and the energy here is very, very positive. Now, whether that's going to be sufficient to translate into the commitments that we need countries to step up to, we'll see by the end of next week. But also, unlike any other COP that I've been to, there's a very important role for the private sector, more important than ever before. I think the private sector are genuine partners in having to deliver now the detail of these national plans that countries are turning up into Glasgow with. So, for the first time, in a real sense, I think the private sector is a genuine partner in this global decarbonisation endeavour.
And just to go back to carbon pricing, because clearly that's your priority while you're here, who sets the price on carbon? Who gets to decide?
Well, at the moment there are, I think, 69 different carbon prices around the world. This is invariably set by governments or by regional governments like the European Union. What we really need to end up with is a global price on carbon. Only about 22% of the world's economy is currently covered by a carbon price, and that can vary significantly. So we really need the world's big financial institutions, the IMF, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, to come together with a sense of urgency to begin to harmonize the approach to carbon pricing so that it is fairly distributed around the world. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be one price for the whole global economy. You've got to recognize that, to be fair, it may be lower in some developing economies. But we do need standards, and we do need to recognize that putting a price on carbon pollution is a very effective tool for pushing us towards that cleaner, safer future that we're all trying to create here in Glasgow.
Great. Lord Barker, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Good to talk to you.
Thanks, everyone.